And this one. And I think I have been successful and we should be live. So welcome to this 3P conversation with multiple perspectives with my co-host. Oh, and now I have my voice in my ear. So I was successful, but I can hear myself. I don't want to hear myself. Especially like a minute behind where I'm at. Joined by my co-host, Ian, who is a dear friend and so much more than that, and comes with multiple perspectives sometimes, and sometimes, well, I think you come with multiple perspectives all times. Sometimes we just get to see some of the alters come to life.
Yeah.
And we started this with, I'm going to press record and see what topic comes out. And now I'm not sure that was the best idea, but here we are. And I think what we're going to discuss is perspectives, of course, is the difference between problems and predicaments.
Oh,
And years ago, I came across a definition for problems in a book and I loved it. It just delighted me. And then about a year ago, I went to find it again. I'm like, oh, I know where that'll be. That'll be in my Facebook group where I posted it when I discovered it. Except that my Facebook account was completely shut down and all of my posts were deleted and it was gone and it was lost forever. Except the other day I opened up my Kindle and went, it was a quote from a book that I would have read in Kindle. And so yesterday, the day before, maybe even the day before that, time is an illusion, I sat and I trawled through half a dozen books in Kindle searching for the word problem, looking for the definition that I just still love. And I'm going to butcher the quote, but the essence of it is that a problem is, and it comes very much from the mathematical sort of problem definition, but is then applied to where we would use it in life. A problem is something with a goal and variables or conditions. And the piece that I would add on to that is that those variables and conditions are within our control. Because if they are not within our control, then we don't have a problem, we have a predicament. Because a problem, by its very inherent nature, has a solution. And so if the conditions and variables aren't in our control, then you cannot have the solution because you can't make anybody else do anything. You can't change the weather. You can't, like, there's a whole bunch of things in conditions and variables that are outside our control. I would suggest very few are within our control. And so if there's no solution, then by my definition, at least, we can't have a problem because every problem has a solution and I will find the way. Like, they're my inherent, and they're beliefs that I've been trying to challenge for years. And I've never successfully managed to convince myself that I can face a problem and not solve it, which becomes very frustrating when I'm facing a predicament and those variables and conditions are outside of my control. And so the dictionary definition of a predicament, just for something odd and rare, we'll follow the dictionary definition. And we're going to go with my interpretation of the dictionary definition. But the dictionary definition of a predicament was basically a situation in which we feel discouragement or disappointment or distress or dejection or rejected on some fashion, and it had the word embarrassed, but that doesn't go with my D alliteration. So I'm not as keen on embarrassed, but I can't find a synonym of embarrassed that starts with D. And so we're stuck with embarrassed.
Can you repeat the dictionary one again?
So it's a situation, it's a situation in which we have bad feelings. And I don't like the definition of bad feelings.
Okay.
But it's undesired feelings if we want to move away from the word bad. But it's a situation in which there's distress or despair and I acknowledge that there will be some predicaments that overlap with problems. So there will be some times where we feel despair and we actually have the capacity to change the variables. So it can be both a predicament and a problem. And there are probably scenarios in which it's neither a predicament or a problem. And I didn't pay too much attention to that, but it was more this realization of if I'm looking at something as a problem with this inherent belief that I've tried changing of Amy will fix it. And that comes from internally, like if there's a problem, I will find a way. I will
Hmm.
find a solution. And I really live by that. And if it is a problem where the variables and conditions are within my control, I will fix it. I will find the solution. If the variables and conditions are not in my control, then it's not always easy to solve the problem
Hmm.
without becoming controlling and manipulative, which is within me and I can. I'd rather not.
So
And
are
so,
there things that can be mostly problems? Because what if four of the five variables are in your control, but number five is not?
well, then it's not
Are you?
solvable.
Well, I mean,
Unless you employ someone to do like and employ is the wrong word, but unless you draw in whatever that variable and condition is, it's not solvable until all of the conditions and variables are within your
okay,
control.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, let's say variable number five is within Joe's control over there.
Yep.
Well, I can always go talk to Joe
Yeah. You can approach
and try
Joe.
to have some influence.
Yes. And if
And
Joe
Joe
is
might say
open to
yes or
that,
no. But yeah,
yeah.
maybe Joe will be like, oh, sure, buddy, no problem.
Yep. And if Joe says, sure, no problem, then that variable is now within your ability to change. Like that conversation was successful in changing that variable or that condition. And
Yeah.
now it's not a variable or condition in the way of the outcome. And that problem is
And
solvable,
if Joe
therefore it's a
tells me
problem.
to fuck off,
Now you've got a
then
predicament.
now I've got a predicament that might even be worse than it was before I approached Joe,
Well, potentially, which
potentially. Yeah.
which is often why we will maintain the predicaments rather than making them problems and having the conversations.
Hmm.
My husband the other day, is he okay with me sharing this publicly? Yes, yes. My husband the other day fell asleep at the kitchen bench. He was exhausted. He hasn't been sleeping well. He's not enjoying the sleep apnea machine. It's There are numerous factors and conditions in that. And I said, we have to have a conversation about this. Like it freaked me out because I used to find my toddlers like that. They'd be halfway through eating a meal and they'd fall asleep at the kitchen bench. And it was quite cute when it was my toddlers. When it was my husband who was in the middle of cooking dinner, it scared the hell out of me. Like
Yeah.
there was definitely a fear response. And I made myself sit with that fear response for 2 days before I broached the conversation because I wanted to have soothed my nervous system enough to be able to have and there was no point in the moment. Like I sent him to bed in the moment. I'm like, go to bed. You're clearly not up for cooking dinner. I'll deal with dinner. So I dealt with the situation and everybody was safe. But there was no point in trying to have a conversation with him in that moment because I was so triggered and he was asleep. Like that was not going to, if I'd woken him up, he wouldn't have, he doesn't even remember any of the conversation and it was a brief conversation we had in that moment. There was a point to this. What was my point to this? He scared the crap out of me. And I realized that I was terrified, but I also realized that it was a predicament. Like I wasn't facing. And so the difference in how I approached him for that conversation was massive he didn't even hear it, but I said, because normally I would come and I would say, we've got a problem, we've got to talk about this. I remember what my point was. So the reason he hadn't shared with me that he was exhausted was that he didn't want to encounter the conflicting conversation. Like he didn't want me to growl because he wasn't cooking dinner.
Yeah.
And so that whether we're going to make the predicament better or worse can go either way with the conversations. The avoiding the conversations can make that predicament significantly worse, or sometimes having the conversations can make the predicament worse. So it's one of those things you've really got to weigh up which way you want to go. And so his avoidance of that conversation, if he'd come out, I can't say how I would have reacted. I suspect I would have reacted with a slight growl of, you said you were going to cook dinner and can deal with it. And I don't want to deal with it because that was the energy that I was in. But
Yeah.
also I would have then cooked dinner. I mean, I ended up cooking dinner anyway. And so whether we have the conversations or we don't have the conversations, we don't really know how that's going to play out. And if we don't have the conversations, then we definitely can't get the, oh, yes, I can help with that. And so we're denying ourselves the possibility of actually turning what is a predicament into a problem that's solvable. And then there are other times where our own internal stuff means that we're not going to have those conversations.
Yes, this is the husband's dilemma. This is every husband's dilemma.
Well, I think it's possibly even every person's dilemma, but I suspect
Yeah.
husbands get a harder rap of it. Certainly in this household,
No,
my husband gets a harder.
we don't want to say something because we are anticipating the reaction,
Mhm.
and our prediction of the reaction is not 100%, but after a while it gets to be like it's better than 50-50. We have a pretty good idea what the reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
So then we try to figure it out or not, right? And we're stuck in the predicament.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's definitely a predicament, not a problem, because it's not solvable. There's no real solution in that. You feel the uncomfortable, you feel the discomfort, you feel the distress, the whatever's going
Uh-huh.
on, and we never know how someone else is going to react.
Yeah.
And we can build up predictions. I remember probably 7 or 8 years ago, we got out of the car. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. It's my husband and I. We got out of the car. I remember putting my foot on the grass and saying, that is so unfair. And while that would have been true 5 years ago, that is not the version of me that you now face every day. And it was, he'd been avoiding having a conversation about something because of how he had predicted that I would react.
Mhm.
And in the early stages of our marriage, the prediction was probably fairly accurate. However, I've done so much personal development. I'm like, that is such an unfair prediction and
Uh-huh.
completely inaccurate for the last 2 years.
And so, from your point of view, it's like now you're not giving me the chance to
Not giving
show
anybody the opportunity to show
that
that
I am a
development.
better person.
I don't know that I'd use the word better, but I've definitely evolved and changed. I'm definitely
Yes,
a changed person. I do
that I
like
have
to think
changed
that it's,
in ways that are wanted and productive for our relationship.
I think it's for the better. It's definitely changed for good. I don't know if you've seen Wicked, but I've got that song sort of rattling around in my head. I've been changed. I don't know if I've been changed for the better, but I've been changed for good, meaning changed permanently. Like this is a change that has stuck rather than, yeah, the double meaning of good there. It delights me in the lyrics because I love those kinds of plays on words. But yeah, it's like I don't know if I've been changed for the better, but I've definitely been changed for good. There's no way this version of me can go back to the version of me that I once was. There is definitely an expansion, and there are days where I want to. I really, when I watch The Matrix, I really relate to Cypher, who just wants to go back into the Matrix and not
Yeah.
know anything. As like, I was happy eating the steak that wasn't steak. I was content.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. And
Uh-huh.
can I go back? Now he did manage to go back. I think he ends up dead in the end. But
He ends up dead. Yeah, it doesn't end well for him.
the
Hmm.
I haven't found that hack in life. Once you know, once you are aware, we are changed for good. We are changed, and it can continue to evolve. I don't think we can ever go back.
Yes.
And I may be wrong.
No, well, yes, and I mean, and that applies in so many, once you know you can't go back,
Mm,
you have
mm,
evolved, right? That becomes in some ways, that becomes a whole, so like for me, as the host of a dissociative system, now that I
you
know I'm the
can't go
host of
back.
it, I can't go back to not being a system. Wouldn't want to. And I can't use my headmates as an excuse. for
Mm,
my behavior,
yeah.
right? Now that we're all aware of each other, there are no more excuses. There are no more, well, he did it or she did it, not me. No, the point is we did it collectively together. And it doesn't matter which one of us was walking and talking as it happened.
Yeah.
But the nice side of that too is when we do something great and accomplish something, it doesn't matter who was walking and talking when it happened because we did it together.
You get to take credit. Yeah. It's definitely that double-edged sword. It's like I am responsible for everything in my life, which can be like this burden of, fuck, I'm
Mm-hmm.
responsible for everything in my life. And then at the
Yeah,
same time, it's like I am responsible for everything in my life. I can change and I can evolve and I can. There is
right.
that what we're in control of is an interesting exploration for me. And I deviate from I have no control, I have no free will, I
Mm-hmm.
nothing is mine to everything is mine. I have free will and I have like creator abilities and I can attract whatever I really fluctuate between those two extremes quite frequently and
No,
anywhere
I'm
in
the
between.
same. I mean, if I'm thinking purely rationally,
Mm,
I'm not convinced either way. But if I'm purely rational about it, I think it's more likely than not that free will, in the sense of libertarian free will, how we think of it, does not exist and never has existed, probably
yeah,
never will exist. I think it probably is just not a thing. On the other hand, I act as though it is a thing
yeah.
all the time. And like you, I act as though it's like a huge expansive thing where I have free will in all kinds of ways I never thought I did before.
Yeah, yeah. It's very similar to my own approach. It's like I could easily be convinced, at least momentarily, that free
Mm-hmm.
will doesn't exist. It doesn't bring me joy
Right.
and it doesn't make me happy. And so I ignore it and imagine that it does.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And maybe
Yeah.
it
And
does,
when
and
you
I'm
say,
not imagining. Maybe it actually does. I mean, this comes back to your common phrase of, I really don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. And there's part of me that then progresses to, I don't care. I'm going to act in the way that brings me joy.
Yeah.
And believing that there is no free will, believing that everything is predetermined, believing it just does not bring me joy.
Right.
And sometimes it's nice to have that to blame. Like, well, I don't have free will. This is not my fault. This is just the way it was meant to be. And
Well,
sometimes I
right.
find a little bit of joy in that.
That can be fun, except that, I mean, that's not an excuse we would use anymore either.
It's not what I use often. Every now and then I indulge, but it's not what I use
Yeah.
often.
But
And it
we have
is an
actually gone through
indulgence.
and we have put names to all of our excuses for our bad behavior. And often our names are
Nice.
people from our past, you know, people's places and things. Here are
Yeah.
all the excuses we have used before.
Yeah.
We have we have let them go.
Well,
So yes, maybe 25 years ago when we did that awful thing that caused harm, maybe we were doing the best we could with what we knew
yeah.
and with the tools we had at the time,
Yeah.
given what had happened to us before. And yet, we are still responsible for the harm we caused, and we will still strive not to cause that harm again.
Well, I think the the acknowledging the this was the best I could do with the tools and the resources I had at the moment is how
Mm-hmm.
we activate compassion for
Yeah.
ourselves and often for others. Like this is the best they know how to do. And sometimes that can be a straight, like, seriously, what the hell have they been paying attention? How have they been this oblivious? I think I was saying this off camera. It's like, how is this obliviousness there? And yet it
Mm-hmm.
is. And so there is compassion in there. It doesn't then be a get out of jail free card, though. It's
Right.
the I have compassion and I have empathy. And yes, in that moment, you were doing the best you could with the tools that you had. In this moment, that's a different scenario because you've got more tools, and you and I and whoever, there's more tools available. There's more awareness. Once we've got the awareness, that's where the responsibility kicks in. When we
Yeah.
don't have the awareness, you can't hold someone accountable if they're not aware. I mean, you can try, and people do.
Well,
And I'm,
I mean, there are certain religious and spiritual paradigms that use that in ways that I find harmful and unproductive. They will explain their theology to you, and they're like, "Well, now you're aware of it, so you no excuses. So if you don't buy in, you know, then you're not one of us, and we can do what we want to you, and you're going to burn in hell
well, and
because
maybe
we've told you
awareness,
the truth."
maybe awareness isn't enough. Maybe there is got to
Yeah.
be we add in those tools. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
thinking there are legal courts where if you show up and say I'm not aware, that's not going to get you out of whatever it is. There is definitely um the like it's like you were aware or should have been aware was one of
Mm-hmm.
the I can't remember what case it was, but one of the cases I was listening to the other day, that was the what was written in the legislation. It's like this person was aware or should have been aware of the consequences of this. And
Yeah,
so,
the terminology we use is a reasonable person would have known or should have
yeah, and that'll vary state to state,
known.
um,
Right.
and country to country and whatever. But yeah, there is definitely that moment of like at some point we do need to take responsibility for becoming aware and
Mm-hmm.
then for finding the tools. And once we've got the tools, we're meant to use the tools. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
always. I don't always. There are times where I was really impressed the other night when Michael was asleep. Like the instant reaction. And it was definitely a fear. Like I was absolutely terrified. And so I was not operating from my higher self or whatever we want to call that, where we're a little bit more regulated. And I was able to self-soothe in that moment and acknowledge, okay, deal with now and then deal with later.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are consequences of this and we need to navigate this and like there's a whole bunch of things that I can imagine and amplify and agonize over, to use my husband's word.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was able to catch myself and do that self-soothing in the moment. And there
Yeah.
was some resentment that was activated as I was making freaking dinner that I didn't want to make. Um, though I did very much enjoy the chicken schnitzels that we made. Chicken schnitzel from
Mm-hmm.
scratch is just such a pain in the ass. Like the crumbing and the egging and the
Mm-hmm.
it's just not my favorite, which is why I delegated it to my husband,
Uh,
who seems to enjoy it generally. They
yeah.
were really quite delicious though, which did help. Like when I got a delicious product at the end of it, it did help.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those moments where I realized, and when I approached Mike to have the conversation later, I said, we have a predicament. I have a predicament. Because if I have a problem, and it was interesting watching, I don't think he would have heard the word in the moment. And at some point, I will have that conversation with him. We just haven't had the opportunity yet. But if I show up and say, I have a problem, he too wants to fix it.
Yes.
Like there is an instant inbuilt
Mm-hmm.
this is a problem. And for me and for him and for probably quite a lot of people, you hear the word problem, you're like, great, well, let's find the solution. Like it just is an automatic correlation of, well, there's a problem, there must be a solution. Let's find it, let's fix it, let's. Whereas when I showed up with, I have a predicament, he didn't try to fix it.
Mm. Interesting.
And the reason that
You
I
know,
have a predicament is because 90% of what needs to change in this scenario is on him.
right.
It's not on me.
Now, did he not have the same reaction because you and he have previously discussed the difference between problem and predicament, or because
No.
just the word
Just
predicament
the
didn't
word
have?
predicament didn't have that same association, I suspect. I'd have to
And
ask
I
him.
agree with that. If my wife says walks up and says, "Honey, I have a problem," like I'm 2 steps from panic mode right off the bat. Because either I'm the cause of the problem or the solution to the problem or both, and oh my god, what did I do?
Well, and I
Um,
think that's often when I think about it in the past where I've taken a predicament and called it a
mhm.
problem. In the last year or two, my husband has then made it into I am the problem.
Hmm.
In the
Oh
decade
yes.
before that, he didn't. which is an
Oh, really?
interesting, yeah, it's an interesting
Mm.
shift in, yeah. So up until recently, he hasn't taken it personally. I think it's the
Mm.
four agreements, like where don't take it personally is one of the agreements in, I can't even think of the author, but there's a book called The Four
Yeah.
Agreements. And
Mhm.
I can't remember what the other three agreements is,
I
but don't,
can't either, but I know
it's,
what you're talking about. I know I've read that book, and yeah,
um, yeah, I've read it several times, and don't take it personally has stuck. Like I remember that one.
first time I have to look it up. So.
Um, and up until very recently, my husband didn't. It didn't matter what I went with. And half the time I was directly saying, you are the problem and you need to change. And he would still just sit there and go,
Right.
I'm not taking any of what you say personally. It doesn't matter how directed and pointed you get, it's not going to land. And now, even
Hmm.
really indirect and unpointed and things that I genuinely don't mean to be personal land differently for him.
Yes.
And that's
Interesting.
okay. But the term problem, it very much, like you were saying, it's like he would hear, you are the problem.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Whereas if my if she walks up and says, "Honey, I have a predicament," I'm like, "Ooh, a puzzle.
yeah,
Is this something we can figure out, or is it not?" Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's that is this something that can be figured out or is it not? That makes the big
Hmm.
difference because the problem you have to find, I have to find the solution. Like, and I think you relate to that on some level.
Yes.
There's that seeking of, we've got to fix this. There's got to be a solution.
Yeah.
Whereas
The
the
predicament I
predicament,
tend to think of as like a catch 22 also. Like a catch 22 is a predicament.
yeah. Can
You
you
know, and the,
expand?
the example from the classic example from the book Catch 22, which was about World War II bomber pilots, was if you were clinically insane, they would not make you go on like a suicidal mission. But the fact that you didn't want to go on a suicidal mission meant you were not clinically insane. So therefore, everybody always had to go on the suicidal mission
Yep. Yeah.
because it was rational to say, no, I don't want to commit suicide. I don't want to fly in there and get killed today. That was
Yeah.
rational. So therefore, you're not insane.
Therefore,
So
you should.
therefore, you go. And then the character would be like, well, what about somebody who says they want to go? Is that person insane? And they're like, no, that just means they're really brave. Oh, okay. So
So whatever you say, you're going on this mission.
yeah.
There's no
Mhm.
way out.
Or, the modern version that, I feel very much for young folks. I think this is way more true now than it was when I was at the beginning of my career is you're trying to get your first job out of uni and they're like, well, you need experience. Okay.
How do I get
So if
experience?
everybody won't hire me because I don't have experience, how do I ever get experience? And then you just never,
Yeah. I'm seeing that with my teens at the moment and encouraging them to go and do some free work experience just to get, and to do that, we need insurance because it's the way the world works these days. And it was interesting. I haven't finished the discussion with the teenager, but the other day I said, I looked up the insurance, I found the price of the insurance. And from my perspective, it's not particularly expensive. And it's like, I don't want to do that. That costs too much. I'm like, what you can't see, and of course they can't because they're 16 and 17.
right. Yeah.
This investment, and it wasn't particularly expensive, is going to set you up for this is how you get a, like, you can't get to having the experience and you're not hireable without the experience.
Right.
And so it is that catch 22 of I need experience and then the having to pay to go to work. And I understand the resistance to that,
Yeah.
except that it's an investment. It's not a cost. It's in it. And I was trying to explain this to the teenager the other day, and I didn't get very far. And at some point, we will revisit that conversation. But it is definitely this catch 22 of you need to have experience. It was one of the things that I worked out pretty early in my, so I went to university, and the whole way through university, I worked in hospitals. And so back then, and it's changed now, but back then, once you'd done your first, must have been 6 months, it might have even been that, but because I was enrolled in the degree and attending the degree, I could be employed as an assistant in nursing.
Right.
And I had jobs in nursing homes as assistants in nursing. I also worked in the hospital kitchen because that made sense to me to get a job and actually see what it was like on the other side. And I
Mhm.
always, when I moved, so I worked in, it wasn't Hornsby, it was Windsor Hospital kitchen. And when I went to Hornsby Hospital, the other nurse, and I was brand new, like I literally just graduated, but I had far more experience than most of my peers because I had been
Mhm.
working for the 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And, but I could navigate, I could ring the kitchen and get anything that I wanted
Mm.
from the kitchen because I knew exactly how to
Oh,
converse with
yeah.
the kitchen staff because I'd been the
Uh-huh.
kitchen staff
Yeah.
and older. And it didn't occur to me at the time. It's like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just ring and I ask for, but because I had that knowledge, the language that I would use would shift and I'd know how to connect with them. And generally I'd be able to say, look, so I know you're right in the middle of like delivering all the trays and everything and in the middle, and I get it. In 10 minutes when you're not doing that, can I, and I would be able to speak to exactly what they were doing. And I think just that little bit of, I see you, I know what you do.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this person sees me. Of course we'll do what she wants. Like it was just a very
Hmm.
different discussion. And it was the same. So at Hornsby Hospital and at Bathurst Hospital, because I had worked and gained that experience,
Yeah.
because my nursing degree did not have anywhere near enough experience from my perspective. We had 18 weeks of
Oh,
practical over the 3 years.
yeah.
It's not very many weeks of practical. And so I worked the whole way through. It was really interesting. My first placement, we were meant to do a research project. And I say we were meant to because clearly I did not.
Right.
And it was, you were meant to spend a day sitting and interviewing one of the elderly residents about their experience.
Mm.
And I was exceptionally rude to the facilitator
Mm.
in hindsight. And I advocated to actually do nursing work. I didn't want to
Mm.
sit there and do paperwork. And it was an interview. It was a
Mhm.
subjective interview. There was nothing. So there were questions like, where did you grow up? And how do you feel living in the
Mm.
nursing home? And there was no verifiable way of knowing if I'd done that or made it up
Mm.
in terms of filling in the form and handing in the assessment.
Mhm.
No one was going to go and find Joe Bloggs in the nursing home and say, is this what you said to this student?
Right.
And so I wanted the practical experience.
Mhm.
And so the facilitator's like, you have to do this. I'm like, I can ask those questions and get a gist and a sense while I am showering the patient, while I am doing
Mhm.
bed baths, while I am taking them to the toilet, while I'm actually doing the hands-on practical nursing.
Mhm.
She told me I would never graduate and that I would fail as a nursing student.
Mm.
The nursing home hired me.
Yeah.
Just that difference between academia and actual experience. And so, and in that moment, I realized that the practical uh, weeks that we were going to have were never going to help me. And so I then worked because I knew I needed experience. And when I went out to graduate, not only did I have my degree, I also had 2.5 years of experience working at two different nursing homes, working in the
Mm.
kitchen, doing various
Yeah.
various things.
So you did
And
not have the same predicament
I did
as
not,
some of your fellows. Yeah.
or problem even.
Or
Like
problem.
it was because that was
Yeah.
that's a variable that was in my control.
Mhm.
Choosing to get the extra work. Now there is that predicament stage of I don't have experience, no one will hire me. The benefit back then though was that we were all enrolled in the degree. None of them had a
Right.
bigger predicament. Like we all had the same
Mhm.
variables and conditions available to us,
Yeah.
with the exception that half of the people that I went to uni with, and I don't know if that number would be accurate, but a lot of the people that I lived on campus with, their mummies and daddies were paying for them to be there.
Mhm.
And my parents paid my first semester of accommodation And then I was pretty much on my own. And so the variable of I need to have an income was significantly higher for me because if they
Right.
needed more money, they rang their parents. If I needed more money, I had to get a job. And so it wasn't quite the same problem because I did have that variable of I needed to find, and I got the government Oz study allowance
Yeah.
that helped and covered my rent, and the rest of it pretty much went on alcohol, quite frankly. It was not necessarily the wisest of choices, but that's what we were in, that's what we were doing.
It happens. It
Um,
happens. And yeah, I mean, I'm still paying for my law degree every month,
yeah.
25 years later. So,
Well, see, I would be, except that because I don't bring in a huge amount of income now, I don't pay for mine. Mine just sits there as a government. The
mm,
Australian, and I think it's very different in the US, the Australian, if you're not earning a certain threshold, you don't have to pay it back. And that threshold is quite high.
oh no, in the United States, they'd rather you starve.
Yeah. So ours is a government assisted loan, and the the government basically wears the brunt of it if you aren't earning an income, which I think is actually
Mhm.
like, and it doesn't matter where that income is coming from. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to the degree.
Right.
So yeah, mine is still sitting there. I would have paid it if I'd been working full time. I mean, I stopped working full time. I stopped working outside the home full time and
Yeah.
started working inside the home. I mean, we had 4 kids under 6. It's far more than full
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it still sits there. But yeah, there's that navigation of paying it off. But that at while I was at uni, basic living expenses meant that I needed that job. And so that variable of I need an income to support myself and while I was on campus it wasn't too bad. And then I moved off campus and that the expenses got a little bit more, like having a house rather than a cell on like
Mhm.
my uni dorm room. You could literally stand with your arms side to side and touch both sides of the room.
Yeah.
It was tiny and
Yeah.
it was sufficient. Those moments, what I'm realizing is those moments where I've seen problems, and it probably has helped me in the past, where I've pushed through problems because I've wanted the solution. Like there are probably predicaments that I turned into problems so that I could
Mm.
find my way out. Where I find that that strategy doesn't work so well for me is as my children get older and want more autonomy and more independence, and they
Mhm.
are less under my control. And that language is appalling, I get, but there is an element of accuracy to it.
Sure. Uh-huh.
And in my relationship with my husband, like there is definitely we redid Riff's well-being scale. That's my profile of the week, profile of the day. We'll see how whether I pick up another one or it lasts a whole week. But the Riff's well-being scale has autonomy as one of its measures. There were 6 measures, and my husband and the 2 children that have taken it, or the 2 teenagers that have taken it, all score high, like quite high for autonomy.
Right.
And so that autonomy is there. And I want you to give that. Like I say, I can't go back. Like the controlling and manipulating version of me probably could manage this quite well and probably could navigate
Uh,
it. It's not the version of me that is prominent these days. And so seeing things as predicaments rather than problems, seeing my husband's health as a predicament, it makes me distressed, it makes me uncomfortable. The variables in that are not in my control.
yeah.
The conditions around that are not in my control. And so there was a real surrender that didn't feel like surrender. It was just a subtle shift in perspective to acknowledge, okay, this isn't a problem that I have to fix. This is a predicament that I have to feel and allow myself to feel the fear, to feel everything else. And there was a whole myriad of emotions.
Mhm.
If it was a problem, I wouldn't have felt. I would have acted. I would have solved. I would have ignored, suppressed.
Yeah.
not even recognize that that fear was there. Whereas because I recognized it was a predicament, I'm like, okay, well, this is a predicament. Now I've got some feelings. What am I going to do with those feelings?
Yeah.
And how am I going to soothe? The statement that keeps coming up in my mind at the moment is pain is inevitable, suffering is not.
Mhm.
And I've had some physical pain. I don't know what I've done to my back, but I've done something to my upper back. And I know I've complained about that several times. I'll continue complaining about it because I don't like pain.
Good.
I've also got a digestive weird and like excruciating to the point that but the first time it happened, I contemplated going to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. And I said to my husband, I felt like I needed to go to the hospital. And he's like, well, then maybe we do, because that's like
Mhm.
for me to feel like I need to go to the hospital. I'm a
Yeah.
nurse. Like you got to be dead or dying to go to the
Yeah.
hospital.
Mhm.
When I had my car accident years ago, the ambulance officer he was a young officer, and I knew the other officer, so the ambulance pulled up, and they did get a second ambulance reasonably quickly. There was two cars
Mhm.
involved in the accident. Um, but the ambulance officer that knew me went to the
Mhm.
other vehicle because like to maintain ethics and whatever else. Like, and
Mhm.
if he'd been the only one on scene, it wouldn't have mattered. But it
Sure.
there was also one ambulance pulled up and two cars that needed attention.
Yeah.
And so this, I don't know, he felt young at the time. And this is a decade ago, so he must have been like 12 because I wasn't particularly old. But he's standing there and he's trying to convince me to go to the hospital. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. He's trying to convince me to stay still. So my car was hit and it rolled on its roof and all the way over and it spun a full turn and then another half turn
Oh my God.
so that I was facing back the way that I'd been coming. And I've seen pictures of the cars years later, and I'm like, well, no wonder they were concerned. Like it just, but I don't remember. I remember seeing the car, and then I remember talking to the neighbor that had come out. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't remember anything in the middle, and I never want to. Like someone said to me, I can help you remember that. I'm like, why would I want to?
Mhm.
I'm like, sometimes being able to does not mean we should.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could help me remember that, but I don't want to. Like my body has
Mhm.
deleted that for a reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember opening my eyes and there's like a woman screaming at me, "Are you okay?" Like I try to work out if I'm conscious.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine. And she opened my door, which did open, which was good. Um, I'm like, yes, I'm fine. I have no pain. And then I remember sitting there going, I have no pain. And I'm
Mhm.
wriggling my toes trying to work out if I have
Right.
feeling
Yeah.
because I have no pain may not be a good thing in this scenario.
No. Mhm.
And the angels were clearly with me because I walked away with a tiny scratch on my hand
Mhm.
and a tiny piece of glass in my eye. And that was
Mhm.
it.
Ow.
The
I'm
glass in
sorry.
my
The glass in the eye. I'd
it
rather have a broken arm. Thank you.
it I couldn't feel it. It just it was numb. And so they washed it out and there was no
Oh, okay.
it I
There was
yeah, I
no like guy with tweezers coming into your eyeball, and I'm like,
there possibly was. I don't recall. There's a lot that I've deleted from that.
yeah.
Um I was quite impressed that I'd walked like the angels or whatever.
Mhm.
I just go to the angels were obviously with me because I saw the car coming and it
Mhm.
had a give way sign. And I'm like, it'll stop. And then I went, it's not going to stop. This is going to hurt. Like
Yeah.
it just, so it was a 50 zone. He was doing 80 and just blew straight through the give way sign.
Mhm.
And, but I'm sitting there and I've got this very young ambulance officer going, you got to stay still. I'm like, I'm fine. Let me walk to the, like, just,
Yeah.
you've got blood. I'm like, yes, it's glass in my hand. It's like, you're wet. I'm like, it's because she washed the blood and it wet my trousers. I'm fine. Let me
Right.
out of the car. And I'm sitting there, but it was this moment of, he's like, no, you don't get a choice. I'm like, I do. And then the other guy came over and he went, "You're going to the hospital." I'm like, oh. And the 12-year-old I didn't have much credibility in. And the older guy, he sat with me for 3 hours at the hospital. And
Mhm.
we were associates rather than close friends, but he knew
Yeah.
me. He said when he pulled up, his greatest fear was he knew I had 4 kids and I was
Yeah.
in the car on my own, which was the greatest benefit because I was going to pick up the
Mhm.
kids. Like if it had happened on the way home, I would have had all the kids with me. So I was in the car on my own. Once he realized I was alone in the car, he chilled quite substantially. But he sat with me and he's like, "I'm just waiting for you to realize what happened." I'm like,
Mhm.
"I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely fine." And it was really hard for him to comprehend. About 4 days later, 5 days later, I woke up and I was cold and I was shivering. And I'm like, "Oh, look, shock."
There it is.
And
Uh-huh.
then, well, and then I rolled over and I had such pain in my boob. I had mastitis.
Oh,
It
wow.
wasn't shock at all. It was mastitis. And I
It
ended
was
up
unrelated.
completely unrelated.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, but yeah, this pain is inevitable. And so in that moment, he's like, "There will be pain." I'm like, "No, there wasn't pain there." But I keep toying with this pain is inevitable, suffering is not. And so as I'm lying in bed the other night with this chest tightening pain,
Mhm.
trying to convince myself. And I mean, the first time I was trying to convince myself I didn't need to go to the hospital, it took two ambulance officers to convince me after the car accident. And I did need to go to the hospital then because the glass needed to come out of my, like they had
Yeah.
to, and that was not, when I say a tiny bit of glass, like I mean smaller than a pinhead piece of glass. Like it was not visible to the naked eye. They had to X-ray and whatever else they did to work it out. So when I'm contemplating going to the hospital, the pain is obviously quite severe. And at some point I will go to the doctor. But these moments at the moment of like this pain is there. I'm like, pain is inevitable. And part of me goes, does it have to be inevitable? Like, why are we going with that level of belief here? Is that the right belief? Like, well, pain is here. Let's just go with pain is here, but I don't
Mhm.
have to suffer. And this problem versus predicament is the same energy of we're gonna hit struggles. We're gonna hit the I don't know, I don't know how to convert the pain into that, but there's going to be struggles. Let's go
Mhm.
with struggles. Struggles works.
Mhm.
And some of them are going to be unsolvable.
Well,
And
the it's like the pain is the predicament, but the suffering is the problem because the suffering is within your control. It
yeah,
is your reaction to
yeah,
the predicament or circumstance,
yeah,
right? Predicaments happen in life.
yeah,
Things will happen and you will find yourself in a situation that you would rather not be in for any number of reasons,
yeah,
and you will be in that situation for reasons that are not entirely within your control. So there you go. You have your
yeah,
predicament. Those will happen.
yeah.
The, but then you can turn that predicament into a problem unnecessarily, right? So this
Or
is
you
like the
can turn it
unnecessary
into
problem
seeking a solution where the solution just isn't
where there
possible.
isn't one. Yeah. And so that's the suffering. The suffering is the struggle against the struggle. And
Yeah,
so in mental health terms, they call it turning on the struggle switch.
yeah, yeah. And so at the moment, this pain does seem to be inevitable. I can't work out what's
Mm-hmm.
causing it. I have been tracking diet. I've been tracking menstrual cycles. I've been tracking bowel
Mm-hmm.
movements. I've been tracking and they're all result. Well, the diet is not result. The diet is probably cause, but I've been tracking like hormones and various things. And there's no consistency that I have found yet. I'm looking for the pattern. The pattern is not appearing. It appears to be it I mean, I'm looking for what are the variables that contribute to this. Like I was definitely still approaching it as a problem. And at some point, maybe I will uncover some variables and maybe I will get a little bit of control back. But while I don't know what the variables are, it's not a problem that I can solve because until I can identify the variables, I can't change the variables to create a different result.
This is also why we have doctors who are equipped to also figure out what the variables are and
Yeah, and if I had
what
faith
can be
that they
changed.
had the ability to do that, then I might have gone and seen one. Registered
With
nurse.
that,
Like, we're the
yeah.
worst patients. People talk about doctors as the worst patients. Doctors are fine. Nurses are by far the worst patients ever. Just,
But all of my favorite doctors were nurses.
um,
When I think of my life-threatening visits to hospitals, I don't remember any of the doctors.
no, you don't see, you see them for 5 minutes. You
No, I
have nothing
remember
to
the
do with them.
nurses.
The nurses are there all the time. Yeah. It,
So,
but that,
and I am okay saying pain is inevitable insofar as pain is simply your body telling your brain there's something to address.
yes,
And if we don't
yes,
address it, things get worse. And that's how your body gets your brain's attention, is saying there's something that needs to be addressed right now.
yeah,
So unless you live in a body that literally never has anything to be addressed, right, including you've never stubbed your toe
yeah,
or gotten a paper cut or anything, then in that
yeah,
sense, yeah, pain is inevitable. And emotional pain is the same way. It's your
yeah,
nervous system saying we are near or beyond our capacity right now and it needs to be addressed, and you
yeah.
feel the emotional.
Yeah, so the emotional, psychological was the word I was going to use. But yes, there is
Mm-hmm.
the physical and the psychological or the emotional, or probably all three, depending on how we
Mm-hmm.
define them.
Yeah.
What I've noticed though is the more I shift to this pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, the faster these weird bouts of pain are passing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely because I'm not fighting it. I'm surrendering into it. And I
Yeah.
the
And we
variables
actually
that
use
I'm
words. We
not
actually, like, we will feel the pain and be like, oh, hey, I see you. I
mm,
notice you. Thank you for the information. Don't worry, we will get back to this. Like, we can't
yeah,
right now, but we will come back to this. Thank you for the information. And then
yeah.
sometimes the physical pain will melt away in that moment.
Yeah. And that's what I'm noticing. Not necessarily instantly. It is still 2 or 3 hours was the other night. And it's normally in the middle of the night. Like if it happened when the doctors were open, I probably would go to the doctor. But it happens at 2 or 3 in the morning, and by the time we get to the doctors being open, it's gone away. And I'm like, well, now it's gone away. I don't need to.
Well, and nobody wants to go to the
I'm not going to
OR,
A&E.
emergency room. No.
Like I said, I did the first time it happened, I did actually contemplate. And here I think there's a little bit of a difference in that I think in Australia people are far more willing to go to A&E because it doesn't come with a bill like it does for you guys. So for
Yeah.
us, we can just show up to the hospital, we hand over the Medicare card, and that's it. There's no financial consequence. It's not everybody's favorite space to go, but
Right.
it's less of a financial burden than it would be for you in the States. It's much
Yeah.
freer.
Although more and more of us here are just being like, yeah, go ahead and bill me.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck making me pay it. What are you going to do? Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that makes a bit of a difference. Yeah, it's definitely not something. But that moment of surrendering, and I think that definitely falls at the moment without knowing what those variables are, it falls into predicament. It's not a problem that I know what the variables are. Now there are probably variables, and having thought just now, like one of the variables is probably psychological well-being. And I may see if I can start tracking that a little bit and see if it's aligning with anything in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
But until we know those variables, and until those variables are in our control, now if they're unknown, they're not in our control, we've got the predicament. And it's how do we navigate the emotions? And it really does partly come down to, like you were saying, acknowledging them. Oh, look, there's part of me that is feeling
Mm-hmm.
either physical pain or emotional pain or psychological, whatever it is. It's like that fear the other day when I found Mike asleep at the bench. The first thing I did was like, oh, look, there's fear. Instant
Mm-hmm.
acknowledgement.
Yeah.
oh, look, there's lots of fear. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started unpacking a little bit. It's like, okay, what are we actually scared of here? What is it that is conjuring the fear? Because most
Yeah.
fears are learned.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a research project, they found babies have two fears, loud noises and falling. It's the only time they have their startle response, which is
Yeah.
a nervous system response, that startle response. And then we've learnt all of these other things.
Yeah,
And
that
so,
have to do with safety and attachment and
yeah. And some of them are valid, most of
Mhm.
them are not.
Yes.
Well,
And
actually, sorry, they are valid. They're not
yeah,
necessarily sound.
right. Well, I'm gonna say there, in the moment. So when you walked in and saw that, you felt fear, likely because it made you feel unsafe in some way. That is a valid feeling in the moment. It's how you feel.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
given
they're
that you
valid,
hadn't
not
had
necessarily
time,
sound.
yeah, but you were then able to walk through, wait, why am I feeling unsafe? What's happening? Do I really need to be feeling unsafe here?
Yeah. And to be clear, that took me a couple of hours. Like, I don't want
Yeah,
anyone listening to this going, oh, look, she's amazing. She solved this in a minute.
I
The
know. If
re
only we could do it like Amy did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the reality is, like I said, it took me 2 or 3 days to actually have the conversation with my husband because I wanted to have soothed my system significantly before, and it was a confrontation. Like, it was we need to have, but it was also this predicament problem perspective allowed me to shift from this is something that needs solving to this is something that I need to express the emotions about. And there's a huge difference in we've got to fix this problem to I need to be heard right now. And that made a huge difference in how he was able to respond to me. And I share that in the hopes that like others will find like that just that distinction of is this a problem? Are the variables and the conditions within my control? And and again, it's not about excuses. It's like, well, nothing's in my control. Well, that's not accurate. There's plenty of things that are in our control. There's plenty of things that aren't in our control.
Yeah. If
It's
nothing
finding,
else, how you respond to the situation is in your control.
yeah. In my coaching training, coaching 101, client comes with a problem, and the first questions that are asked is, how is this a problem for you? Because inevitably, client comes with a problem. My husband's fell asleep on the kitchen bench the other day.
Mhm.
How is that a problem for you? Well, he's not going to earn any money. How is that a problem for you? And coming back to, and the whole purpose of it, and I don't think I realized it when I was learning it, but I've learned it over the last decade as I've applied it, is to draw us back to what is in our control. What are the conditions and the variables if it is a problem? And I think these days, I'd probably go, do you have a problem or do you have a predicament? Like, there is this line of,
Yeah.
are you
Well, and
looking
I
for a
like how this combines with,
solution
right.
instead of
This
looking for a
combines
way to
well with
fear?
our hula hoop thing. So I think I've
Yeah,
told you that we step into the metaphorical hula hoop every morning,
yeah,
and everything in the world that's inside it, within our control, is inside that hula hoop. All of it, everything in the world is inside that hula. Otherwise, if it's outside the hula hoop, and so that also, the problems are the things the situations inside that hula hoop,
mm,
and the predicaments are the things that straddle it or are outside the hula hoop.
yeah. I think I'll leave one last thought. I was listening to a mentor, Joe Pane, the other day, and he said, if it doesn't directly affect your health, wealth, or relationships, significant relationships, you don't have a problem, you have drama.
Yeah,
And it's a really nice line. And it might affect our health, wealth, and relationships and still not be a problem. It might be a predicament. I think it's Gottman that says the number that comes up, and I'm going to totally get it wrong. it's like 86% of problems in marriages are unsolvable. And being married to an introvert who doesn't talk unless we're in the car, that is a predicament, not a problem. It's not something that the variables are in my control. And so, yeah, just allowing ourselves that space to see the difference between what we can fix and what we need to live through an experience. And generally, that's going to involve us feeling some feelings.
Oh, not feelings.
The capacity to feel feelings has to be the greatest gift as we expand it, to be able to sit with our feelings without resenting them. And it's the physical pain has given me a real insight into how to sit with, like, the pain is inevitable, the feelings are inevitable, but the suffering around it, that's a choice. And so when we can, in that same way I've been sitting with the physical pain, when we can do that with our emotional pain or our psychological pain or whatever word we want to use there, life gets easier.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to find the stopping the recording things and then we will finish that one. And we're still streaming
We are
because
still streaming.
I have no idea how to stop that.
Well,